Let's bring in Vivian Salama. She's a White House reporter for the Associated Press, and she joins us now from the White House. So, Vivian, let's begin with this possible troop increase in America's longest-running war. I mean, who's advocating for this move, and why do they think it's necessary?
President Trump has definitely put a lot of authority to the generals that are on his administration and on his staff. The Pentagon, definitely. You have former General McMaster, retired General McMaster, General Mattis, who is over at the Department of Defense, and he is definitely spearheading this move to combat the Islamic State group and the Taliban in Afghanistan. And recently we saw an escalation, the military dropping the mother of all bombs, as it's called, in Afghanistan to combat the Islamic State group. The Taliban has definitely been ramping up its efforts as well in Afghanistan. And we have to keep in mind that Donald Trump inherited a very active war in Afghanistan. We've been fighting there since 2001. And one of the major campaign promises he made was that he was going to defeat the Islamic State group. Now, one would presume that by default that means a lot of the other radical elements like the Taliban and other groups as well. And so he's taking this very, very seriously. We have seen some efforts to ramp up those efforts. General McMaster, the National Security Advisor, was recently in Afghanistan meeting with officials there. And so they're definitely looking to move this along quite quickly.
So after the military strike in Syria last month, it really didn't take long for old tweets from the president to surface in which he actually urged President Obama to stay out of the country. Same thing is happening again right now. Back in 2013, the president tweeted this: "Let's get out of Afghanistan. Our troops are being killed by the Afghans. We train and we waste billions there. Nonsense. Rebuild the USA." So, what do you imagine supporters of the president will make of this move?
Well, the attack on the military installations in Syria was a very hard pill for some of Donald Trump's supporters to swallow in terms of just wanting to stay completely out of the wars overseas, something that President Trump alluded to during his campaign, that he was going to take an isolationist approach, that he was going to put America first, and that meant staying out of those wars. Now, of course, being president, your priorities change, and you obviously are faced with a lot of realities on the ground that you didn't have to confront as a candidate. And so he's receiving his daily briefings every single day. He's speaking with the generals on his administration who are advising him that this is very necessary. And again, one of the major promises that he gave his voters was that he was going to defeat the Islamic State group. Now, the move in Syria wasn't necessarily to defeat the Islamic State group. It was to respond to the chemical attack allegedly launched by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. But at the same time, he needs to kind of get a grip of that entire situation. You can't turn a blind eye and hope that you can solve one problem without solving the other. And so these are things that he's learning in his discussions with the military officials on his staff. Again, you mentioned he's meeting right now with General McMaster, his national security advisor, where undoubtedly they're talking about these and many other issues and how this administration needs to proceed going forward.
All right, Vivian, let's talk about the fallout from yesterday's hearing with Sally Yates and James Clapper. We continue to track that story. What was the key takeaway from that hearing in your mind?
So former acting Attorney General Sally Yates gave a very interesting, very hard-hitting testimony yesterday, where she essentially raised issues and went through the play-by-play of how she warned this administration that the former National Security Advisor, General Michael Flynn, may have been compromised, may have been dealing with the Russians in a way that could potentially lead him to be quote-unquote blackmailed. And that was the major takeaway, is that she said that the evidence that was being put forth in front of her really led to concerns that the National Security Advisor was in a position where he was vulnerable to blackmail or some other political maneuvers by the Russians or someone else. And so she really went through the detailed explanation of how she approached the Trump administration via the legal counsel, Don McGahn, and how she warned them of it. Of course, that was playing out at the same time that we were all receiving reports that President Obama also raised some red flags over General Flynn, something that the administration has painted as sort of a political move by President Obama, that he has not been a fan of Michael Flynn's, and that Michael Flynn was fired under his administration because he did not agree with some of the policies of the Obama administration. And so it's really interesting to see that play out as well. Sally Yates coming out with a very forward testimony saying what she knew, and at the same time sources saying that President Obama had raised similar concerns to President Trump himself.
And meanwhile, Press Secretary Sean Spicer answered some of these questions about why General Flynn wasn't fired after so many warnings, or wasn't even hired to begin with. And he sort of laid the blame on the Obama administration for giving General Flynn the security clearance that he received in the first place. What do you make of that response, that reaction?
That's been the initial reaction of the administration, is that they want to say, well, if this was such a problem, then why didn't President Obama act when he still had the chance to do so, in terms of revoking his security clearance, in terms of blocking General Flynn from traveling to Russia to do appearances on Russia Today, the state-run television station. And so all of these things, Sean Spicer and President Trump himself, in a more indirect way, have been saying that, you know, the Obama administration had the chance to do something back in the day. They didn't do it, so why suddenly are they so concerned? They want to raise, obviously, cast some doubt on the accusations that have been coming out just in the last 24 to 48 hours.
All right, Vivian Salama, thank you so much. From the Associated Press, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.